thank you for joining me here today. And today we have special guest April Coker. When April read the novel Harriet the Spy by Louise Fitzhugh as an elementary school student, she felt such a strong kinship to the book's main character that she decided she wanted to become a writer. By age 10, April was writing short stories for her friends. By age 12, she was keeping a personal diary, and by the time she was a senior in high school, she had become editor of her high school newspaper. But her intentions to become a journalist were derailed when she felt the calling to become a school teacher. Many years later, she has retired from teaching high school English and science and running alternative school programs, and now lives her dream of writing from her home in East Texas, where she resides with her husband Jimmy and Boston Terrier Stella. April also enjoys traveling, glamping in her vintage Scotsman camper, shopping at thrift stores, and spending time with her 3 grandchildren. Welcome, April Coker.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you for this opportunity to spend this time with you and to be able to have a wonderful interview with you. So I really got to know glamping. Tell me a little bit about that. It sounds like it's either exciting, interesting, or all the above. I'm not sure.
It is all of the above. Well, glamping itself, the word comes from glamour camping.
Oh, okay.
And people who glamp are usually ladies. I belong to a ladies camping group, and several of us own vintage campers that we camp once a month if we can. We have the opportunity to camp once a month at different places around the state, and we make it as glamorous as we can.
Yeah.
We enjoy just camaraderie and everything.
So do y'all get all dressed up or anything? What does that look like? I mean, do you guys get all dressed up and maybe play roles or share stories or something? How does that work?
Well, with our particular group, we do dress up. We have themed campouts. Every campout is themed. Like I hosted one that was trailer trash getaway. We've had Wild West getaway. We've had Mardi Gras. Just whatever.
That sounds awesome, actually.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. We wear petticoats, those colorful cans.
Mm-hmm.
Our campers usually are decked out, kind of like doll houses, playhouses.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
So is it fellow authors as well too, or just friends and family, or?
Whoever wants to join the group.
Okay.
We have a leader who started the group, and basically it's women all over the place and we become friends after we join.
Okay. Do you get an opportunity to share any of your stories or anything like that with them, or your books? Or
I do. Actually, they're very receptive to my books. I'll do, quote book signing at a camp out where I'll just have them available and several will buy.
Okay.
So it's kind of a convenient way for books,
Yeah.
I have a good fan base there.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So you have 3 books. Tell me a little bit about each.
Okay. My first book was written in 2006 while I was still teaching, and I'd just gone through a particularly harrowing Christmas season. And so that January, I sat down and I just thought, I'm going to write about how to keep your sanity. It's called I'm Dreaming of a Black Christmas, a Holiday Survival Guide. And Black Christmas refers to keeping your checkbook in the black instead of in the red, which is kind of, passé now because nobody uses checkbooks anymore. But I
don't even think I can write a check if I had to. I haven't. I don't think I've written a check in at least 10 years. Yeah, if I had to, I'd be totally lost.
Well, I think your bank accounts can probably be in the red too. I don't know, but it's kind of tongue in cheek about how to get through events during Christmas, how to go to the $1 store and buy all your gifts and just things like that. And plus I put illustrations in it, and it's a little tiny book. It's less than 100 pages.
Did you do your own illustrations, or did you have an illustrator do the illustration for you?
I did my own.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. They're just cartoon drawings, but it was fun.
Yeah.
And then my second book was a romantic suspense novel titled Night Keeper, published in 2010. And it's based on a group of zookeepers who work at night. My husband at the time was a night zookeeper himself, and he was a supervisor for several people who worked that shift. And he would come home and talk about weird things that he would see or hear at the zoo, and he suggested I write a novel about it. So I did that.
That seemed like a good opportunity.
I'm sorry?
I said it seemed like a good opportunity there.
Yes. Well, that book was published with a publisher who went out of business and kept the rights to my book. And so I'm not going to name any names. I didn't really get any royalties out of that book, but I had a sequel in mind. So when I got ready to write the sequel, I decided to rewrite that first novel. So it's now out under the name The Keeper. And the characters have been changed. Some of the scenes have been changed. It's been updated. So it's basically the same novel, but it's updated and ready for the sequel, which I hope is coming out this month.
Okay. I was kind of wondering that because I did see the two books with similar titles and similar language and everything. And I was kind of wondering, I'm glad you shared that. I'm trying to think if there was anybody else that's ever happened to, because I know when you talk about intellectual property, especially with dealing with a publisher, I know that things tend to go bad very quickly, and depending on the argument of who owns the intellectual property, that can become a problem for authors, especially independent, especially young authors putting their faith and trust into a publisher. So what is your I guess what has been your experience with publishers?
Well, I was pleased with this publisher, especially with my first book. I had to find a publisher who would just take my work without charging up front. I didn't have, the ability to pay somebody to publish my book. So anyway, I went with this publisher, and I was very happy with the way they did my first book. The only thing I didn't like was they did not put the title on the spine of the book. So bookstores would not carry it.
That's interesting. I've seen authors pay upwards to $10,000 just to get a book published. I had an author friend of mine. I think she paid $5,000 to get her very first book published. And then, from there, she ended up changing the cover. I think she still has the same title, but once she was out of, I guess, that contract, so to speak, she couldn't really do anything, was bound by that until that situation changed. Was that similar for you with how you went to the second version of the book? How did that look?
The second version of the novel that I wrote, I was advised by a fellow author who's been in the business for, 30 years. He said, make it a different book.
Yes.
So that if they do come back and say, that's our book, that, you're not supposed to have the rights to it.
Right.
Well, it's not the book, because the same stories have been told over and over for years and years and years by different people. Well, I retold the story, my own story, but I made it different. So
paraphrasing.
and I self-published it with Amazon.
Okay.
So it's my book.
That's awesome. So alternative school programs, there was mention that you run alternative school programs. Tell me a little bit about that.
I did run alternative school programs for over 20 years. The first program I ran was a diploma program for students who were at risk of not graduating high school. They were losing credits in high school. They needed to catch up, blah, blah, blah. They didn't function well in the regular high school classroom. So they would come to my classroom, and we screened them, and they had to meet certain criteria. They would work on their credits at their own pace, and they would earn all the credits they needed for graduation, and then they would graduate with a regular high school diploma. And those kids were my kids. That's where my heart was in teaching, because they really appreciated the opportunity. where they were failing in the regular classroom setting, they could succeed
Mhm.
in a smaller group with one-on-one attention. There was lots of bonding with that group. Have you ever seen the movie, The Freedom Rider? Not the Freedom Riders. Is that, yeah, the Freedom Riders.
I have
That
not seen that movie. I don't really watch very many movies. I don't get an opportunity to, but no, that particular one, no, I have not seen that.
well, there's lots of movies out where, you know, a principal took a school and worked on everything. I felt like these kids were kind of my ministry, where I would work with them and give them special attention that they weren't getting otherwise. And a lot of them graduated high school. Well, I had over 300 graduates through the years.
Okay. Oh, that's
But
quite.
and believe it or not, Miranda Lambert was one of my graduates.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but she was not at risk of not graduating, except that when she started her music career, she was staying out so late doing her music that she was falling behind. So her parents
Oh, yeah.
requested that she be put in there. But anyway,
I can see how she would think her music was definitely more important. I know that she has risen to a pretty good level in music.
yes, she has. Very proud of that girl. I also ran a program for a little while for disciplined kids who had gotten in trouble with drugs or whatever, you know, bullying or whatever. They were in for a certain amount of time as a punishment. So I ran a program like that for a while.
Okay. So tell me, are you said you're traditionally published, correct? You actually go through a publisher?
I did at first, and then now I'm independently self-published with
Okay.
Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you like that a lot better? Do you like the freedom of being independent a lot better, or?
I do like the fact that I control everything with the cover and the number of copies ordered, and I can tell, you know, they have a dashboard. You can tell exactly how many copies have been ordered, and you get a certain number of royalty, and it comes straight to you.
Right.
I don't like, it seems like there's less support. I mean, I feel like I really have to get out there and beat the bushes to try to sell it.
Yeah.
That's my own, but I know that's a universal problem with authors.
Yeah, I know marketing is definitely tough for a lot of independent authors unless you either are networked or you just have, you know, some great techniques to reach an audience. Marketing is definitely tough. I can fully relate to that. I know I changed my marketing strategy a few times over the years. So what has worked well for you? What is your marketing strategy look like?
So far, I've joined a writing group in our, you know, local writing group and gotten ideas from them. I use social media a lot. I book signings whenever I can locally and a little spread out, you know, a little bit. Mostly social media, I would say. I also have a little part-time job where it's a retail business, and there's only one of us who works at a time. But when customers come in after they make a purchase, I'll plug my book, and I've sold lots of books that way.
I used to do the same thing. So when I first published my very first book, so my first book was published back in 2013, and I was so excited. I was going to work just telling everybody about it. My book, my book, my book. Hey, guess what? I got a book. How about this? My book. And you know, somebody actually approached me. It was like, hey, how about your book? Or so, you know, something kind of sarcastic. So I know how real that struggle is to, you know, to tell everybody, hey, I got a book. But a great way in which to do that is with book swag. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you got some really good book swag. Tell me a little bit about your book swag and what has worked well for you in that.
Well, I don't know that I have really good book swag, but I've kind of watched the other authors in my group. And let me say something about being in a writer's group. It gave me the confidence to get out there and say, I have a book. And worth something, instead of like when I first began, I was like, oh, I'm sorry, would you, I actually wrote a book. Oh, okay, you don't want to look at it. I mean, I felt like I was imposing on them, but now I have a lot more confidence in that. So what I've done with swag are I have bookmarks. I do business cards, of course.
Mhm.
I even in my first book there was a recipe that the main character did, and I passed those out in postcards.
Oh, that's a
Um,
great idea right there. Like an actual recipe card with the recipe on it, and then your
yes,
book. Okay,
yes,
that's a good
uh,
idea, actually.
yeah. And so the last book signing was at a restaurant, and which was also a bookstore, very unique in Glen Rose, Texas. If you ever go, the Storybook Cafe, it's amazing. But
Okay.
she did a book signing there, and as people came in and sat down, and after they ordered, I would walk up to them and tell them about my book and hand them my bookmark card and a postcard with the recipe
Mhm.
on it. I thought that worked well.
Okay.
But basically, I don't print out pins or anything like that.
Mhm. I
So
know I've seen a few authors go way over the top with book swag. I mean, they got everything from pins to keychains to
mhm.
posters. I've seen one author that has a logo actually for his books, and what he does is he got T-shirts made with his logo, and he even created a hashtag. So he's got a logo on the front, the logo on the back, a hashtag on the back, and every time he goes out into public, he's got that a T-shirt on, so he got different colored T-shirts on, and
Yeah,
where he goes, he's a walking billboard. And
I thought about that.
I
uh,
have too. So I'll share a quick marketing strategy that I did one time, and this was
okay.
really over the top for me. What I did was I went to Staples and I got a little an ink stamper with my website on there and maybe just a little bit of text. And everywhere that I went, I would ink stamp this thing everywhere that I went on books, magazines, newspapers, the wall, toilet paper, you name it. I was putting this thing everywhere that I could put it at until someone finally said, "Hey, is that you stamping stuff over here?" Because somebody, recognized me and saw, and said, "Hey, there's that guy right there." And I was
That's
like,
awesome.
"Why, yes, it actually is me. Is there a problem?" Kind of a thing.
One thing
And
I've thought about is the zoo is Timber City Zoo in my
um,
book, and I thought about having a cap made and maybe a zoo shirt made that I would wear to
yeah,
book signing.
that would be a good idea right there. I mean, that would give you an opportunity to have kind of a marketing billboard, so to speak, everywhere that you go, especially if you have like a specific hashtag or a logo or something that you can kind of walk around in. That would be a really good idea. Um,
I
I
also
know
had this other idea. I don't know if you want to hear it, but it is my interview, isn't it?
it is your
Anyway,
interview. Yeah.
there is a hedgehog, a little hedgehog in my second book. The little girl has a hedgehog. And I
Okay.
thought about actually getting a pet hedgehog to bring to book signings. I know that a
Oh.
friend of mine wrote the book Sammy Squirrel, and he actually had animals at his table at book signings. Of course, you have to clear it with the host, but
Mhm.
I think that would be an interesting draw.
Yeah, that sounds interesting right there. So, Um, I've seen authors not only just with logos, but maybe an item or something that basically can connect you, your book, and readers. And if somebody can get behind whatever that may be, that's a great idea. I really like that one. I
Okay.
know business cards are a really good one. I know you mentioned business cards. I
Yeah.
used to go hand out business cards and drop them off as well too. And I remember one time I went to this place. I dropped a bunch of business cards, and this guy came right out behind me, grabbed all the business cards, put them in his pocket, and walked away. So I followed him. I was like, "Hey, what are you doing with those business cards?" So he kind of said, "Well, why are you putting them down on my table?" Because I want people to get them other than you. So it was kind of interesting. So I actually sat down with the gentleman. I showed him my website, showed him who I was, and this, that, and the other, just to kind of say, hey, I'm not just some random guy just flipping cards everywhere. So I wanted to kind of prove to him that, hey, I was legitimate and this, that, and the other. And he put the cards back out there after I took the time to explain that. So tell me, what do you see the future of publishing and opportunities for young authors to break into the industry, or new authors to break into the industry? Do you see a positive future for publishing or independent publishing for that matter?
That's probably the hardest question. Um,
Mhm.
I know that traditional publishing is very difficult to get into.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, what I've heard, they don't support writers like they used to as far as marketing, because you still have to market yourself, even if you are with a traditional publisher.
Right.
And I considered maybe trying to go that way with a future novel. But I think that, yes, I think the opportunity is wide open for new authors.
I believe so too.
For sure.
Especially with different formats that are coming out. You know, you got different websites and different opportunities, different ways in which to consume books. And you know, I've seen new websites pop up all over the place. Like not only Amazon, but you got Smashwords, Lulu. You know, those are some of the big ones. I'm really waiting for like a big website to just come out and just bust the top wide open, like maybe a BookBub, and then they're publishing books, or a, you know, like, I mean, I know Goodreads is owned by Amazon, but it would be really interesting to see how many different opportunities are out there to be published. So
I agree.
What are your thoughts about putting your books onto a website? That was one of the most interesting things that I have ever seen. Was a website was the book, and the book was the website. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, I have not.
That was amazing. So I bought a book one time. So I had a sponsored ad that showed up on Facebook that said, "Hey, get this book. You know, just pay shipping and handling." I was like, I want that book. So I went in, I clicked on, went through the link, and I put in my details. I ordered the book. Now, once I got taken to the next page, it said, here's your login link to log into the website, and you can get access to the digital version of the book before you get the real book. And I was like, that is genius. You know, the interesting thing is that I read the entire book on the website before I even got the physical book mailed to me. It was great. But here's the interesting thing that I really liked about it is that, once again, the website was the book was the website. When you got in there, it was all in digital format, looked just like a website, looked just kind of like a book. It had tabs. You could kind of hit next and it would kind of flip the page over. And then it had links to videos that further explained the book. So the author also had the book, had videos and everything. And to me, that blew my mind away. I had never seen anything like that before. So is that something that you could see potentially your books being, as maybe online, to where you shift your marketing efforts, or you shift the way that you traditionally publish over to having a website as your book and your book as a website? Is that something that you find interesting?
I find it very interesting. I think that would be something to look at. Yes.
I would say that was probably one of the most interesting ways that I have seen a book published, especially with children's books. I know that children's books, especially with digital media, okay, you could literally do a children's book, make it look all animated and nice and everything. So I think that that's huge for the children's book market.
I do too. I don't know. Young children, I still think need the print, just the tactile part of that.
I can see that. I know my kids, I have 2 young kids, and I know they read on their iPads a lot, but we also have them read physical books as well too.
Right.
So what other events do you participate? You mentioned that you attend book signings. What about any other networking events, book signing events? What are some glamping? What are some other type of events that you participate in?
Well, my current family responsibilities prohibit a lot of that, but I am a member of our East Texas Writers Guild, and we are actually having our summer conference in a couple of weeks, and I actually chair that. There's a lot of networking opportunities there, and even within our guild, there's a lot of networking. So basically, I guess just within my guild, which is no small thing, we have some excellent and some very world-renowned writers in that guild. So I'm getting a lot of good networking, I think, but you could always use more.
Well, you've made your mark within the guild as well too. You won a prize within that as well. Tell me a little bit about that.
That was a little short story, Confessions of a Mild-Mannered School Teacher. it was just a little contest that we had, and I wrote this story and was lucky enough to win first prize.
That's awesome.
I was surprised, but it was great.
So I know that there are a few award opportunities that's out there. I know that there's a few websites that does this, and I know some actual physical events like I think the Reader's Choice Award. So there's a few awards that's out there. Have you tried to participate in any of those at all, or no?
I have looked at those. Usually the cost to enter is prohibitive for me.
Okay.
If I could find something that was a little less expensive to join, or to submit my work to, yes, that'd be great. And I know that I believe Kindle is having a contest. Amazon Kindle.
Oh, really?
Katie is having a contest. So I asked my formatter for my book that I'm having worked on now. I asked him to submit that for me. He said he would.
Okay. Yeah, I got to look into that. I haven't heard or seen anything about that. I know, the internet is so wide and far that's out there. You just don't know what you don't know, and sometimes you stumble across things. And I know that I've stumbled across some things as well too, that are out there. I know that there are award contests. Some of them are a bit steep. I want to say that the lowest that I've seen was $29, I believe. I can't remember the website on that. I've seen one for $29, which is doable. You know what I'm saying? But I think the process for that, I'm not quite sure how long that process is, but basically the $29 gets you in. Hey, we'll look at your book cover. We'll look at your book description. And if you're selected, you'll go to the next round. If not, you'll get some feedback on what we looked at. For $29, that may be valuable to an author. I'm not quite sure. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think something like that, like feedback on your cover and your book description, do you think that would be valuable for $29 if your book wasn't selected?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think that's doable. Definitely.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't know if that would be the same for me to get feedback on a book cover and maybe my book description. I don't know if $29 would be good, but once again, it's a matter of perspective. Some people may want that level of feedback. So it's kind of like a review, so to speak.
Right.
What's that other site that's out there? Kirkus Reviews, kind of like a Kirkus review, which they definitely have a high price for them. Have you thought about doing a Kirkus review or anything, or is that outside of the range?
That's pretty much outside of my area right now.
Yeah, it's like BookBub. My goodness, BookBub charges a lot for marketing and advertising to get into their community. I looked into that, and then when I saw the pricing model on that, I nearly just left the room. I was like, no, not so much. But I know BookBub is definitely high priced for that. So so tell me a little bit about your inspiration for writing your books.
Well, as I talked about, my first book the inspiration was a very frustrating Christmas season.
Mm-hmm.
So that was basically that one. And then my husband was my inspiration for my two novels that I've done.
Okay.
I also, not really mentors, but writers I admire have been inspiring to me to go ahead and, get things done.
Have you ever participated in, I think it's NaNoWriMo? Have you ever done anything like that?
No, I have friends who do, but that's not something I would do. I don't need that kind of pressure.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, looking at word count and looking at like how many words you write a day, I definitely know where you're coming from, and I can relate to that, because to be able to write to a word count or a daily word count or what have you, once again, I think that's kind of restricting. So what are your thoughts on word count? Do you have a specific word count that you try to get, or just when the story's done, the story's done?
Well, at my age, I'm a retired school teacher. 3 books is not very many since I've wanted to write my entire life. But I'm not real good at disciplining myself. I don't get up early in the morning to write. Basically, my writing occurs at my part-time job when we're not busy, sometimes in the evenings. I I've tried to discipline myself, and every time I get derailed somehow, and then it's another week before I get back to it. So I'm really not good with that.
Yeah.
I do see the value in that.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
Okay.
I think in a perfect life, without obligations here and there, sit down 2 hours a day and write.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that, but I'm kind of a seat of the pants person with my writing. Okay.
One of the greatest quotes that I really like, it talks about goals and habits. I never really wished, I'm not really trying to achieve my goals. I don't wish that I had better goals. I wished I had better habits, so to speak.
Right.
And that I can definitely relate to that. Have you ever experienced writer's block?
I can't really say that I have. I can say that I have, sat down to write and not really felt like I was ready, but I wouldn't call that writer's block.
Okay.
And a lot of times all it takes is rereading what I've written previously on the same project.
Yeah.
And then it'll start flowing.
Okay.
But I've not really been struck with writer's block. Now watch it happen to me.
Have you ever acted out a scene within your book? Like for example, you might be struggling with something or what have you, and you find yourself either talking out the scene out loud or acting it out. Have you ever done that?
No, but that's a great idea. No, I really haven't.
I have an author friend of mine that writes fantasy books, and if you can imagine him getting dressed up and putting on, what is that? The wizard outfit or something like that, and he's acting out a scene. And another thing, I tell you, I must write, must I? Kind of a thing. I don't know. I'm acting out there for a second, but
that's great.
He shared that story with me, and I'm not going to lie, I started laughing. I thought it was funny, but that's a method, acting out a scene or acting out, whatever, to kind of put yourself either in character or in mood or in scene. And I know that is one way that I've heard that authors have overcome writer's block, reading other books. I mean, there's different ways in which to overcome writer's block. And I'm always on the lookout for what creative or interesting ways people come up with to overcome it whenever they experience it. So,
right.
So tell me, what do you find more challenging to write, a scene or a character?
Well, I think definitely the character. It's kind of hard for me to separate the two. Actually, when I read that question, I was like, I don't know how to, because the characters are in the scene. You have to know your character to know what to do with the scene.
Right.
So maybe that would be it. The character comes before the scene. You have to know who the character is, but they kind of tell you what they're going to do in the scene. Does that make sense?
It does. I know being either under descriptive or over descriptive can be a problem. So whenever you're writing your character, trying to I guess get out details of your character or your scene, how do you feel? Do you feel that you're under descriptive, too descriptive, not descriptive enough? How do you feel about that?
I've been told I'm not descriptive enough. So I'm more focused on action rather than description. So I'm working on it.
Okay. So tell me, do you have any current or upcoming projects?
I do. I've just finished Keeper 2, A Storm, or The Storm. It's a sequel using the same characters and settings as the first novel. And it's actually being formatted as we speak, and hopefully will be released this month. And then, of course, I really actually have a children's book in mind to go with those two books, using one of the characters from the book.
Okay.
And then later, I would like to maybe write a mystery novel using my glamping experience.
You know what? I would probably read a book like that. That sounds like it would be a really entertaining, very, very comedy, tongue-in-cheek type of book right there.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So if you could share one golden nugget to either a young or even a new or even a seasoned author, what would that one golden nugget be?
I think the one thing is to believe that you can be a writer and to stay with it.
Okay. That is awesome. That's a great bit of advice right there. You know, so many authors, you know, they write down a page or maybe a chapter and then they just give up. They quit. I can't do this. The struggle is real, you know, and then they just lose all faith. I think that, you know, if you want to achieve, or if you want to, yeah, if you want to achieve, you have to first believe. Okay.
That's true.
And it's not going to be perfect. I know myself. Okay. I'm a nonfiction writer. I don't write fiction books. I can't write a story to save my life. But you know what? I've tried. I've dabbled in it. I got a few chapters down, so I'm stretching outside of my box, stretching outside of my limits, trying to create a story. And how do you feel about that right there? So I've asked this question before about being an author versus being a writer and stretching limits and doing different things because there is opportunity that's out there. What are your thoughts on author versus writer and stretching your limits?
I guess it depends on where you see yourself, what you see yourself becoming. I can write reports, nonfiction articles, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoy writing fiction more.
Okay.
And so that's what I focus on. But as far as writing itself, my thing is I write because I can't not write. I write all the time. It may not be in my novel. It may not be a story, but it's journaling. It's just writing everything. Like I write an account of my glamping trips. I write down everything.
Yeah.
So I can't not be a writer. So it's just where I want to focus my energy.
Okay.
If you enjoy nonfiction writing and if you want to do the work of writing articles for magazines or textbooks or whatever, and that's your thing, then I think that's wonderful.
Okay. You know, I've been there. I've held my phone right up underneath my chin, recording stuff on my phone as I'm driving, just to get an idea or get a thought out there. You know, because I can't pull over and start writing down anything, and I didn't want to lose my idea. I've done that. So.
I've done that too. I've done that too.
All right. Well, I want to personally thank you for joining me here tonight. Absolutely wonderful interview. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for sharing your books. And, you know, I look forward to sharing them with the community and getting everything out there. You know, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. You've been great.
Thank you. All right, so if you would like to connect with more from April Coker, you can do so by visiting her website, aprilnunncoker.com. You can also connect with her on social media. She is on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. And to all the members of the Author Teach community, I wish you all the best and continued success. Keep writing that next bestseller, and I will see you in the next video.